All right, good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. We're here to talk about accounting, entering income. Now, before we get started on our topic, a few things. If you've been to an event before, please bear with me while I go through these details for folks who have never joined us before. If you have, you click the little red arrow on the sidebar of your webinar control panel and have a single monitor set up. That minimizes the webinar control panel, gets that out of the way. Definitely you can get the full visual presentation of our webinar today by doing that. If you've got a dual monitor set up, of course, drag that control panel out to your second desktop just again to get it out of the way. If you have questions for me, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. I'll do my best to keep an eye on those. I'll see what I can do to get them answered during the event. If not, I'll certainly be happy to stick around and see what I can't do to get those answered at the very end. Thank you in advance for attending. We really appreciate your participation in these. We are recording today's webinar event, so as always, the videos are produced after the event concludes. We put those out on the support center of our website. In fact, we're going to go there right now at churchwindows.com. Go to the support center or videos and documents. I think there's actually a video already out here on this from an earlier version. Frankly, this enter income transaction hasn't really changed that much over the course of several years. Oh, come on, Josh. So if you may be able to go out there and rewatch a very similar presentation to the one that we're watching here today, albeit this one will be out there in another few days or so. We'll have this particular recording out here sometime soon. We're going to work until 2:20 Eastern Time. I will promptly end what I'm talking about here. Yeah, right here. So we've got accounting, posting other income version 17 or newer. It was recorded in 2016, but it's the same exact topic we're talking about today. This window virtually has changed very little in 2 years, so or a year and a half. So you can also revisit that, and it will cover virtually the same thing we're covering today. Our workbook the topic is taken from Accounting or A203, pages 11 to 16. You can, if you don't have the workbooks, you can purchase those from the Church Windows website. There's a workbooks link. You can purchase those right online. Maybe some of you have already done that. It's very simple, very easy. They're very affordable. And so that might prove helpful. We do try to keep the webinar topics in line with the workbooks as much as we possibly can. So again, it's A203, pages 11 to 16. Please keep the questions topical. I'm here to talk about enter income today. It's not because I don't want to answer it. It's just I may not be in my thought process may not be there. My data may not be equipped to support it. So, again, please keep it on the enter income topic here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So when we go into accounting, as the first bullet point on page 11 there talks about is, while most of a church's income will come into accounting through the donations module, the enter income transaction that we're looking at here, let me get my highlighter right here, enter income. This is designed really initially for non-contributory or giving or monies that come into the church that are not from donations or giving. Okay, while you certainly may record all of your income through donations, this enter income transaction doesn't, just simply means you don't have to. Okay, we're talking about things like, building rental income or rental property or wedding fees, bank interest, earnings on investments, all of that stuff. That's not money that's coming in from givers through donations. So we can record that using the enter income feature in accounting. And I'll even go so far as to say you can include both your donations and your enter income transactions on the same deposit slip in the software, provided they share the same asset and the same date. Okay, I'll try to, if I have time, I'll show you that near the end. It's not in our workbook. However, if you don't use the donations module, you can use the enter income transaction to record the Sunday's collection or your collections from your worship events. Okay. Income in this enter income transaction can be posted to an income account, to a liability, or even to an expense account. And we're going to show examples of all of those as we go through this topic here. So we go to enter income, and it opens a window that's very similar to other accounting screens, whether it's enter bills or post, pay bills. But as with virtually all of our transactions, the first thing that it wants to do is it requires that we enter a date for our entries. So here it's going to default to the date on the computer. We're going to go, that's okay, but if I go, I want to change that, we simply click the down arrow and choose a different date on the calendar if we want. We'll enter that as a future date. We'll do it as next Friday. If there is a payment method that you want to record, it's not required by the software. It certainly would help for something like your deposit slip in terms of separating checks and cash. Even if I believe if you record a check, you don't have to record a check number. No. But again, it's the more information you enter, the more you have information to enter on your reports and include on your reports in accounting. Okay? So in this case, we might want to go, okay, just because we want as accurate a records as possible, we're going to say we received, income, check number 12345. It defaults to whatever you have set up as your default asset account. In this case, that's our Huntington Bank checking. But I can click the down arrow and choose any asset I want. Okay? So no, we're going to leave it as our regular checking account. I can enter transaction comments. And also, I do want to point out, sorry, I overlooked that. Right here, if you do want the transaction to print on your deposit slip that you produce from Church Windows, either donations or accounting, you do have to check that box, print on deposit slip. Okay? Let me get rid of my drawing here. Actually, we're going to make backdate that. We're going to change this to 3/4 because I think we've got giving on that day. And again, I'm going to try to show you the deposit slip that includes that. And then down here, we could certainly enter comments, transaction comments if we wish. But then notice right here, one of the things I like to point out is, notice right above our accounts, it says income, expense, and liability accounts. Okay? Very, very important. A lot of folks go, oh, well, I want to report income to a liability account. Do I have to use a journal entry for that? Absolutely not. So yes, while I click the down arrow, I will see my income accounts first, but if I continue to scroll down, notice it is changing to my expenses, and if I go down even further, it will eventually change to my vendors and any of my liability accounts. They're all there, okay? So in this case, we're choosing rental income, so we've received some income from our rental property, so here's our rental income. And then we'll say, okay, it's rental income because we've rented our fellowship hall to our, whomever. So we're going to go, okay, we rented the room for $25. I can certainly enter comments for, Boy Scouts, Scout Troop, number, 456, what have you. Okay. And then I would simply click Done, Add to Batch. Okay. So if I post that, that'll show up as a deposit to my Huntington Bank checking and a credit to my rental income account. Okay? And so it just adds it to my batch. Okay? Now we can, of course, post multi-line income transactions. So same thing. I'm going to leave it as 3/4. It's going to go into my Huntington Bank checking. I'm going to change my payment method to cash this time, say. And then here under our income account, I might, as the example shows, let's see here. We're going to type in other. There's our other miscellaneous income. We're going to say we received $100 in cash for our men's car wash. In addition to that, we're going to say that $100 of that, $200 we received, 100 of which is going to go to other miscellaneous. The other portion of it is going to go to Soup Kitchen. So there's our Soup Kitchen income. So again, we can say we allocated $100 of that men's car wash income towards that. Okay? And I can continue to add other income lines to this if I wish. But just like you can enter bills to multiple expense accounts or do journal entries to multiple accounts, you can also enter income transactions to multiple accounts as well. Okay, so I might type something under my line item comments, like half of car wash profits, allocated or designated for Soup Kitchen income, something if I wish. Okay. And again, same thing. When that's done, I would simply click Done, Add to Batch, and it adds it to my income posting, my income batch. Okay? Again, none of these transactions are recorded against my accounts until I click post, but we're not at that point yet. Okay? So the next one on page 14 is talking about entering income to an expense account. Okay? So maybe we've received a refund from something that we purchased. Okay, that's a good example. The difference between, recording this as an income transaction to either an income, an expense, or a liability is all determined by if our cash account is affected. So when I've received a refund from something, so I've received something I can physically deposit, enter income is going to work for me. Okay? If I've received, say, a credit memo from, say, a vendor, merchandise credit, my cash account is not affected. Okay? Then enter income is not going to work for us. Okay, that's the really important distinction. Because again, you do have at Enter Bills an option called credit memo. A credit memo only works when we've received a credit from a vendor that does not affect our cash account and is not being deposited. Okay? So in this case, we purchased something with our building maintenance, okay, and we've received a refund back from that. We purchased a new, some materials or a new furnace or something, and we received a rebate check for that, something that we can physically deposit. So I would simply put it in there, in whatever date. 3/4 is fine. Again, I'm going to do this, and so we're going to say something like, refund from, new furnace installation, and then we're going to credit that to building fund expenses. Okay? Notice I'm choosing a credit to an expense account. Okay? Then I would say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and enter, and we're going to say we received, $250 of that. Okay? And again, I can record a check or cash or payment method if I wish. So yeah, we're going to say we received it in the form of a check. You can enter a check number. Done, add to batch. Okay, so now this is important, is once I click, so it's popping up here and telling me that its associated asset is not the one that does not belong to this fund. Do you still want to add this batch to this transaction? So we're going to say no to that. So we're going to go up here and it's basically telling me the building fund asset that I've associated with the fund is different than my Huntington Bank checking. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's my Fifth Third savings. So we're going to try that again. We're going to deposit that to savings. And yes, it did add it to that without popping up with our message. Okay? So this is just important because it's, again, frequently an overlooked feature or step that I think is really, really important, and I think it's something that really helps folks. If we've now added these transactions to our batch and we show our running balance, we click Show Running Balance here, it brings up our running balance window and shows the effect of these transactions on our respective accounts. So we notice here that our Fifth Third savings account, its transaction effect is it going up by $602 or by $250. But if we go down here now to our building fund expense, notice it's a credit to an expense has the effect of reducing it. So had we charged our furnace expense, I didn't charge that, I didn't record that, but if I'd say charged, $3,000 to my building fund expense, it would show that annual or that year-to-date or current balance effect would have been reduced by the $250. Okay? This show running balance or running balance screen, folks, is really powerful, really helpful. It does help you minimize mistakes and allows you to see the effects of your transactions before you post them and perhaps minimize the number of mistakes you're making. Okay? Very, very helpful. Okay? Finally, on page 15, entering income to a liability account. So you're thinking, well, maybe when am I going to be wanting to maybe post money to a liability as income? Well, as we're going to show here, like maybe wedding deposits. Okay, there could be any number of situations where you don't want to have money crediting to a fund through an income or an expense account, or debit, posting it, crediting it through an income or an expense. Maybe we don't want it to affect our treasurer's report. So again, in our example here on our data, it's going to be we're receiving a deposit for a wedding. So here I would again choose the date. If I would choose the appropriate payment method, Yeah, again, folks, if it prints on the deposit slip, if you want it to be thrown into cash or check, you have to make the designation, and you do have to enter the appropriate check number. Okay? So here under, transaction comments, maybe I want to enter some comments about it's, the Smith-Jones wedding, wedding deposit. So I'm typing in those comments. If I could type today, clearly my B's and my G's are getting mixed up. Wedding deposit. And here, now I'll type in wedding, and here's my wedding. I have wedding income and wedding deposits. So again, this isn't income until we've allocated all of them. The wedding's completed. We want it to sit there. They may cancel it, so we may need to issue a refund. We don't want to put it on our treasurer's report yet. So we're going to put it into our deposits, and we're going to say again, we've got $250 we've received from them as a deposit for that. And again, I'm going to click Done, Add to Batch. And so, as we again continue to look at our Show Running Balance window, here's our wedding deposits. So it had a 0 beginning balance. Here we are, March 1st. We've received, a request from the Smith-Jones family to host their wedding at our church. And so we're now receiving and accepting that deposit. It's that time of year. And so our transaction effect is to increase by $250, and our adjusted balance on our wedding deposits is $250, as well as, of course, being deposited to our it went into fifth third savings. That was wrong. Oops, I made a mistake. So we don't want to deposit that into savings. I would highlight it and click Edit down here, and I would go right up to the top, and I would change it back to my Huntington Bank checking. Okay? So again, Show Running Balance helped me prevent myself from making a mistake before I posted it. It doesn't mean I couldn't correct it later. But the Running Balance window helped me understand that, I didn't mean to put that into my savings account. I'm going to be depositing that to my main checking account. Okay? Then I would click Done, Add to Batch. And now notice my wedding deposits is still the same, but my fifth third savings is now only $250 from my original one, and my Huntington Bank checking that's been moved over to that Huntington Bank checking account. Okay? So again, there are advantages to posting using the enter income transaction, folks. Not a lot of folks are under the impression that, I give my counters the deposit, so they make my deposit on Sunday, including my non-contributions or non-contributory income, non-donations income. So we just have them record the giving through the donations on that. Okay, well, we don't have to do that. All right. So again, here I've got 3-4 as my batch, or as my total. So I'm going to go ahead and post that. It then pops up for me and asks me, do I want to print a report of my transactions? In any other circumstance, I might say yes to that. Okay. So then I would say no, and it blanks out my enter income. Those entries have been posted. So whether I go to my donations or my accounting, and again, folks, this is a little add-on to this. This is not in the workbook about this that we're working with. So again, advantage to being in the live event. If I go to reports, transactions, deposit slip, I choose my date. So I would choose my March 4th. I would choose my asset account. So again, I could choose either Fifth Third or Huntington Bank checking. And there's all of my checks. So notice here it splits all of my cash and my coin. It includes all of my bank entries, all of my accounting entries, and my donation entries. How? Because down here in the lower left, notice it says include accounting entries, including donations entries. I definitely did not enter all those checks. Okay? So there was a batch on donations for that day. Okay, so then as long as I've checked both of those and entered the appropriate information, I can't even add a check or delete one if I wish. It even splits my cash and my coin and identifies my cash and my coin as well. And I simply click print. And it brings up my preview of my deposit slip, includes my account name, my account number, total of checks and cash. I could just attach this to one of my actual completed and signed deposit slips from the bank, and many financial institutions will accept this as a breakdown. So there you go. So it's very helpful. You do not have to record donations, non-giving income through donations, and include it on your deposit slip in church windows. Okay? All right. It is 20 minutes after, folks. I am We're right at 20 after. I am finished with the topic at hand. I hope it's been helpful. I don't see any questions coming into the questions panel there, but I'll give folks a few seconds to type something in there. But if you have seen what you came to see, by all means, click the File and Exit Leave Webinar option. Thank you very much. We hope this has been helpful again. Yes, folks, I would use Enter Income as much in any place I possibly could. And part of the other reason why is that if someone comes to me and says, Josh, how much money did we receive through income postings for the year versus donations giving? When I go to something like my reports or my transaction journal or general ledger, like my transaction journal, say, for example, I can ask the system here on the right-hand side to just reveal my income transactions only for the year, omitting all of the others. So what that means is that if I can get back to my regular drawing tool here and I click print, it's just going to reveal my income transactions and totals for the year, nothing more. So when I go down to the very bottom of the last page down here, it should be, so right here, total debits, total credits, I received $726 worth of income in 2018 to this point. Okay? If I post it through donations, the only place I'm going to be able to report on that is through donations. All right. So again, another advantage to posting using Enter Income versus recording everything through donations. All right. I don't see any questions coming in. Again, I hope it's been helpful. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. Carl's asking, how about interest income and gains and losses on investments? Yep, by all means, Carl, you could go in there and use the Enter Income for that if you wish. Again, the thing of difference is that you've got the three accounts you can credit: income, expense, or liability. If you don't want to use a liability, an income, or an expense, then you'll have to use a journal entry instead. So as long as your interest income or gains and losses for investments occurs and it's affecting one of those three types of accounts as well as your cash account, it'll work fine. Yes, sir. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for everybody. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone at a future Church Windows webinar event. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.